So welcome everyone to our college application night. So I'm just going to set the stage ahead of time. I have sensory issues, so if I get a little distracted with my mask, just bear with me. So tonight we're doing things a little different since this is our new normal. I'm Mrs. Fahey and this is Mrs. Lyons.
Hi.
And we are the counselors. I think we know most of you. We're counselors for students in grades 10 through 12. So tonight we're doing this. We did several virtual sessions last week for parents and students, but we wanted to offer an in-person session as well. So we're going to cover, normally what we do is we have some sessions in the spring, but because of our compressed timeline, we felt it was important to set this night up to be very informative, succinct, and give you all the information that you need, because I think we're all kind of stressed out and we're trying to manage this process, so we wanted to make sure you had all the tools to do that. So tonight, because we are following socially distancing guidelines, we have the contact list sign-in. We're going to go over a lot of information, and we gave you handouts so that if you go away and you have questions, you know where to find the information. So normally when we do these sessions, we have time at the end for Q&A, and we're going to do that. But after the Q&A, we're just going to ask that people leave and not to congregate, just for safety reasons. But if you leave here and you still have questions, reach out to us for email, phone calls. We've both done a series of Google Meets, individual meetings with like a student and a parent, or both. So whatever you need to get through this process, we're here to support you. So that being said, this is our contact information you have in your handouts. So we want to talk a little bit about what's different this year. Or maybe I should have a much shorter presentation and say what hasn't changed, because everything for people, again, there's a lot of stress around everything these days. So what we want to do is kind of go over some of the key information that you and your students need to apply to college. So what's different? The timeline, as I said before. In the spring, we usually do a series of workshops with the juniors to kind of get them ready. Last spring, we kind of did those through the Google Classroom and put a lot of information out there, but the students didn't have that direct access to a lot of information from the colleges and stuff. So it's a little different, making the timeline a little shorter. So the other big thing that's new this year, a lot of colleges before COVID had been going test optional for SAT and ACTs. And then given that what happened in the spring, and a lot of students had signed up for tests and they were canceled 2 and 3 times, the colleges got together, admissions counselors, with the universities, and they really said, you know, we can't really have testing as part of the admissions process. It's just too stressful for the kids. So that's something that colleges were moving towards anyway, but then COVID kind of really set it in stone that, you know, we're going to do this. And Ms. Lyons and I were on a Zoom call with admissions counselors from the Umass systems, and Umass Amherst has said they're going to be test optional for the next 3 years at least. So some of that stuff will continue post-COVID.
I just wanted to say, I don't think I've come across a single school that is requiring SATs for applications right now, just to put everyone's mind at ease.
Right. So what I've told a few students, though, that have taken the test, if you were able to take a test and your score is significantly higher than what, you know, the college average is, and you want to submit it, that will help your application. You can go ahead and do that. But just know that they're not required for this application cycle. So other things that are different are the ways that you're going to interact with admissions officers. So I'll give you an example. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is a sophomore at Mass Maritime doing energy systems engineering online, so he's pretty stressed. My middle child was set to go to University of South Carolina last spring. We were supposed, well, I gave this story in the college planning at the beginning of the year. I'm a guidance counselor, so I'm telling my students you need to go out and visit colleges. And my middle son, typical, did not want to go on a single college visit. It was like pulling teeth. He told me I was stressing him out. So I tried to step back So he applied to schools and he decided he wanted to go to University of South Carolina, which he had never visited. We were all set to go on the accepted students day in March, and it was canceled. So he was all set to go to South Carolina, and a week before he was set to go, we met his roommate. He decided he wanted to take a gap year. So he's working as an electrician's apprentice this year. So I have that situation, and then I have my daughter who's a junior, who's a perfectionist, and is stressing out if her teacher doesn't put her grade in right away, and I'm like, back off and give the teachers a little bit of a break. So I'm very experienced with different personalities in kids, and Ms. Lyons and I have been working together with the kids applying to college for a couple of years now, and so we've kind of seen it all. But what's different is really hard to do college visits, right? So a couple of my students said they went this weekend and just walked around the local campuses. So there's different ways to get that information, to experience the college campus. You just have to be a little creative. A lot of people are doing virtual tours. We can talk a little more about that, but the key is to be flexible and patient, and we'll all get through this.
And I think also to just do it. I think a lot of schools are looking for students to do those virtual tours and those virtual student panel information sessions, and it really shows that your student is invested and really wants to be at the school. And there's always a spot in the Common App that says, tell us why you want to go to this school. So it's nice there, they can sell what they've done to show that they're really interested.
The next point comes up a lot. People, I just read an article about this. Do we discuss COVID as part of the application process? So there is a section of the Common App where a student can discuss how has COVID impacted their application process, and there's no right or wrong answer. So if COVID significantly impacted the college search process and the college application process, you can put that in there. Some kids tried to take the SATs 3 times. The other thing is the essay. Do you mention COVID in the essay? And it's basically the same. We'll get into that in terms of what colleges are looking for, but if COVID significantly impacted your process and you were changed as a result of that, maybe you couldn't volunteer, so you did something virtually, or you learned a new skill, or you took up a new hobby, you can certainly include that. But you don't want your whole application just to be, COVID really screwed things up for me, and leave it at that. So again, if it feels right to talk about how you've changed as a result of COVID, you can absolutely do that, but you shouldn't feel compelled to do that. The other thing is, we always tell this to students, even before this year. Admissions counselors are literally, Ms. Lyons has a friend that is an admissions counselor at Northeastern, and she said, I literally have about 7 minutes to spend on an application. So when they download your Common App and they have this stack of applications, anything where the student's voice can come through to that admissions counselor. So again, if you've done a virtual tour, you want to somehow include that in your application. If you want something that's going to, when I help kids with their essay, I say you really want your voice and what's different about you to stand out in some way to the person reading the application. So that's the importance of the student voice. Priorities have shifted a little bit. I told you my son took a gap year. One of the positives, I think, about all this, if you can find something positive in our situation, is priorities have shifted. So a lot of times we have students that are like, oh, I had a student one year, I want to go to University of Hawaii. Well, what do you want to study? Well, I don't really know, but I just think it would be really cool to go to Hawaii. So sometimes emotions drive decisions, and I think what COVID has done is it caused students to really look at, what am I going to get out of this experience? Maybe they thought they wanted to go away, but now they've decided maybe they want to stay at home. Maybe there's other things that are priorities now. So it's really caused us all to look at our priorities, which I think is a good thing sometimes. And finally, the financial impact. So again, it goes along with the other point about sometimes kids make emotional decisions. They pick a college or a university or a major and they don't really worry about, well, how much aid am I going to get? So I think people, students and parents are looking a little more critically at the application process and what their priorities are. So I think that's important. All right, so this I found was a really, really important bit of information. So one of the things that we've taken part in this year is the College Guidance Network, and I've shared some of the webinars that they have hosted. They have given, it's basically a group of parents and admissions counselors, some people from PBS have gotten together because they know parents and students are struggling, and they've put together these free resources. And one of the sessions was on the college essay, but I feel like the presenter, who has a business called Prompt, and he helps students write their college essays, he focused about, he's a former admissions counselor, and he focused on what colleges are really looking for, and he went through these 5 aspects, and then he talked about how to take those things and turn it into a college essay. So it's really valuable, I think. So colleges want to know that you're going to be successful on their campus and that you're going to add value. So can you be successful in their curriculum, and can you add value to their campus community? So they look for these 5 qualities in students when they're reviewing their applications. They look for drive. Has the student able to really persevere and overcome challenges? They also look for intellectual curiosity. So what does a student do in their spare time? You know, a lot of music students might write about their experience in a band or an orchestra, but what if a student started their own band or mixes their own music online, synthesizing? They want to find out what they do in their spare time. Initiative, how students problem solve, deal with change, take charge of a situation. Again, what the contribution is. So what has the student done to improve a situation? So if a student's volunteering, it was big a couple years ago for everyone to go on those Appalachian service projects. So it became kind of common for people to say, oh, well, I went down to Appalachia, and that's what they wrote their college essay on. But they want to know beyond that. So you went on that project, you saw what it was like for those folks to live in poverty. When you came back, what did you do as a result of it? Did you end up spending more time volunteering? Or did you work with a friend to fundraise for something? So they don't want to see just that you did the experience, but what did you do as a result of that? How did it change you? And then finally, they want different perspectives, so they want a diversity of experiences. So how will the student make a broader impact on the campus? So if a student thinks about those things when they're writing their essay and chooses like 2 or 3 of those and can discuss and tell a story of how they changed as a result of an experience, it makes a really strong essay and a really strong application. So Ms. Lyons and I have participated in a series of webinars and online training and connections with admissions counselors. So we thought it was important to share some of that stuff with you. So this is from a higher education organization, and it looks, we always get questions about early action, early decision. This new restrictive early action was new to me. That's something that colleges have added. And those are for the really selective colleges. I think the only ones that do that are Stanford, Yale, and Harvard. But if you look at the application process in when students are going to apply. So early action is usually, the deadlines are around November 1st or November 15th. Some of the deadlines have shifted out a little bit. Early action is non-binding, but it's a way, if you really got your application together, you have a good set of schools. We always tell students to have at least 2 reach schools, 2 match schools, schools that they're confident they can get in, and 2 safety schools that are absolutely know they can get in. If you're really in a good place and you're interested and you have a good kind of admissions package and you want to apply early action, that's great. The benefit of early action is you're usually here before the Christmas break, whether you got into the college or not. Rolling admission, a lot of schools are rolling admission, so that there's no specific deadline, And some of them, if you submit your information, you'll hear within 2 weeks. So that's rolling admission. So regular decision, I'm kind of going all over the place because most kids are asking about early action. They want to get in there early. Regular decision is usually in the January, February timeframe, and that is perfectly okay to do that. We can talk a little bit about what the benefits of each are. And then early decision is the one where it's a binding agreement. And students are like, well, I want to apply early decision. And then we sit down with them, and when they apply on the Common App, we actually have to check something off as their counselor that says we've sat down with them and we've discussed what the impact of early decision is. So early decision is binding. That is for that school that if you got in, you would absolutely go to, no question. And then the restrictive I mentioned.
Can I just say something on the
Yeah.
early decision? So you can only apply to one college early decision. So if you apply early decision, you are telling them you're going there. And there's one caveat that they usually put in there. If there's financial reasons and you don't get the package that you're looking for, that's usually, they will let you sometimes get out of the contract that way. However, they're looking for a change in financial circumstances from when the student's applying. So they want to see that things, all their ducks were in a row, and then a parent lost a job, or there was some kind of situation that happened in the family that took funds away that was intended for the student to be going to the school. When a student breaks that contract, we just learned that all of the colleges, they communicate with each other, and they have lists of students that applied early decision. And if a student breaks that contract, they will communicate to all of the neighboring schools about that student who did break the contract. So, and it says it in the fine print that they will share that information with neighboring schools or with the schools that your students are applying to. So early decision is a big deal. So we have a lot of students that are applying early decision this year, and we really want to make sure that it's clear that it's a contract that you don't really want to break, and you have to be sure that financially you can afford it, unless, of course, there's a change in circumstances down the road and you can't seem to pay that tuition bill like you thought you could.
So students, what's the benefit of applying early decision? Again, if you're a really strong student and you, again, like it's always been your dream to go to Boston College, and if you got in, you absolutely would go. The thing about the early decision is it's very competitive. So you want to really look at where the schools average test scores in the past. That's not the case this year, but their GPA, kind of their acceptance rate, historically how many students they accept. So you really want to be sure about that, as Ms. Lyons said. The other thing is some of the really top schools, because they're so competitive, like a Duke or a Yale, or if you're really serious about applying, it is in your benefit to apply early decision, because then they know you're really serious. So early action has become so popular, and it's really become, most students are applying early action, I've seen over the past couple of years. Early action, again, if you are a solid student, you have a good application, it is more competitive. So if you're applying to schools and your GPA isn't quite what the average is, it's going to be more competitive, and you might not get in early action. The good news about early action is I always tell students, if you're ready, apply to a few schools early action. If you don't get in exactly where you want to, you still can apply to regular decision, so it leaves your options open. Plus, it's always a good idea. There is something to be said when you get that first acceptance letter. My son got an acceptance letter, and my daughter's like, that's not a great school. I'm like, it doesn't matter, he's going to college. So there is a benefit to getting that first acceptance letter.
If you have any questions on early decision, and we always recommend that you reach out to the admissions office at each college to talk about the fine print of early decision to make sure that your student isn't backed in a corner down the road. Anytime you guys have specific questions about schools, please reach out to the admissions office. It's just like calling a guidance counselor.
And they
They're
love
there
to
help
hear
you.
from students. They really do. So I tell students, sometimes the bigger schools you call, like a Umass Amherst, you can't always get someone, but if you send them an email, all of that contact matters, and it's tracked. So if you reached out and asked a question or you called an admissions officer, when they go to review your admissions, your application, they're going to say, oh, I remember that student. Like, they really do track that. So it's very important to reach out. They love when they get questions. They love when students attend the virtual sessions. So that's really, really important. The other thing is interviewing. So because things have changed, a lot of the admissions counselors have said, you know, high schools in the spring, every school graded a little differently. Some did pass-fail, some didn't count term 4, some combined term 3 and 4 like we did. So they have less data to go on. So grades and SAT scores, again, aren't counting. So a lot of students, extracurricular activities were canceled. So interviews, if you're really interested in a school, you can set up a virtual interview. That's really going to help. And I think, again, to kind of look at what's changed, if maybe a student isn't a great test taker, but they write a really strong college essay, and they have really good grades, whatever, they have a good track record, that can be a benefit this year when the test scores aren't being factored in. So the next 3 slides, I'm not going to go over in a lot of detail, but Ms. Lyons and I did a Zoom call with all of the admissions counselors from the Umass systems, and they shared with counselors kind of what is different this year. So we put this in your packet, and again, a lot of students will come and say, well, I'm only applying to state schools because it's cheaper and I can't afford the private schools. We always, always, always tell students to look beyond the state schools, because the smaller private colleges, one that comes to mind is Salve Regina, they give a lot of money. So state schools, the price tag might be lower initially, but they don't have the private endowments and the alumni funds that a private school does. So when it comes to financial aid and merit aid, some of the smaller private schools will surprise you. So you can apply to a Merrimack or a Salve Regina, and you can actually go for a lower price tag than a Umass Amherst sometimes. So it's worth looking at all of those schools. But because we have so many students that are applying through the state system, we wanted to just share this information about Umass Amherst, Umass Boston, Umass Dartmouth, and Umass Lowell. So this is just a nice snapshot that talks about faculty to student ratio, the different academic programs, what their sports are, Division I, and then they have links where you can go on tours. So this is kind of the four schools at a glance. And then the next slide, they highlighted kind of what's new in the UMass system. So for instance, Umass Amherst, their business school has become super competitive. So a lot of times kids would come in and they'd be like, well, Mrs. Fay, Umass Amherst is my safety school. I want to go to the business school. So last year you had to pretty much have at least a 3.8 to get into the business school at Umass Amherst, very competitive. So this year they have added in the School in Arts and Science a managerial economics program, and I think that's geared to kids that want to go into the business area, economics, but maybe the business school is a little too competitive. So this talks a little bit about the test optional. Some of the schools have added the honors college. So UMass Amherst was the first one to have the Commonwealth Honors College. So some of the other schools have added that. So again, this is in your handout. Some of the other things, UMass Lowell has a cybersecurity as a big major, and a lot of the schools have added that. So when the kids are applying, they can do college searches through the College Board and through our system that we have, SCORE now. But we always tell the kids, don't wait till you get to the Common App to start thinking about what's required. Go on to the website of the school that you're interested in and look at what the admissions requirements are and what the majors are. Familiarize yourself before you're applying so you know what the requirements are. And then the next slide we included, it's just a profile of last year's senior class, so the class of 2024. You can see from UMass Amherst, 42,000 applications at UMass Amherst. Admit rate 64%, which is a little more competitive than Dartmouth, UMass Lowell, and UMass Boston. So, and it just lists the class sizes as well. Again, things are going to be a little different this year, but it just gives you a little perspective for what is going on at those 4 UMass schools.
Well, it also highlights too, under one school system, how different the schools are. So the importance of really doing your homework and researching the schools, and hopefully your students did that over the summer and are continuing to do that now, to make sure that the school is a good fit for the student. So what we're going to do next is, I'm going to walk you through the resources that we have in our Google Classroom, and I'd like to go through the Common App with you, because there's a lot of pieces to it, and if this is your first student, and your first student applying to college, it's very confusing and overwhelming, and sometimes you don't even know where to begin. So I just want to walk you guys through, and then we'll do questions. So we created this Guidance Google Classroom, I think about 5 years ago, and we've really looked at it and used it as an information hub. So we wish that parents could have access to this, and I hope that Google will update that in the future to allow for that. But for now, if you can go on your student's account, we want you to see all of the resources that we put in your packet are here. We just wanted you to have it. It has step-by-step directions for how to do the things that you need to do to fill out the Common App. So under this college application resources, when we scroll down, it's going to tell the students and yourself what is attached. And I want to walk you through some of these things, because it's really about our process. It's about how your student's going to ask for transcripts to be sent to the college that they're applying to. So we have a system for that. Your student will go on, they'll click on the Transcript Release form, and they're going to start to fill it out. It's very straightforward. They're going to put their name, they're going to select who their counselor is, the college that they're applying to. They need to submit one form for every college that they're applying to. So if they apply to 6 schools, they'll be filling out this form 6 different times. We want them to let us know their application due date. We need this form 2 weeks in advance. The reason for that is we want to make sure their information gets there by the student's due date. Are colleges expecting it to be there by the student's due date? No. They're expecting your students to have their application in by the due date. But they know that your students' first term grades are not going to get there till the 3rd or 4th week in November, because that's when our first term closes. So if you're applying early, the college will not make a decision until they receive those first term grades. So once you apply, if you have a November 1st deadline, your schools might email you and say, please send us your first term grades. We know that they're waiting for it. The second we have them, we will make sure we get them to the schools that you're applying to, okay? So please let us know 2 weeks in advance. Let us know whether you're applying early action, early decision, or regular decision. They've added a few other options, early action 2, early decision restricted. I mean, there's lots of different options they've added. You can get more specific. There's a comment section at the end of this, but really if it's early action 2, they can just select early action. They'll let us know if it's a Common App school. If it is, we're going to be submitting their transcripts and their letters of recommendation directly through the Common App. If it's not, we will ask them how the schools want us to send it. Our experience is we're able to email the schools, and what we like to do is we like to email them and mail them. So for schools that want it specifically mailed, we do ask that you bring in a stamped envelope. So
The
that we
other
can,
thing that's important about this too is transcript release. We have to get the students' permission to send their transcript, so a lot of students are like, why do I have to fill out that form? It gives us a lot of information, but it's also a release that we have they're okay to send their transcript, and we use it for tracking purposes. So we've automated it this year, which makes it a lot easier for the students to fill out. We used to have yellow sheets that they would have to fill out and bring down,
so that's the transcript release form. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing because there's a few different pieces to it, and it just asks if you're submitting SAT scores, any additional information you want us to know about the school. So you can go on your student's account and look around at that. We also have, it's called a Student Information Survey. This is a form that's required so Ms. Fahey and I can write your student a letter of recommendation. Your students typically love filling this out. They don't really. It's one of those things, like they write their essay. I feel like sometimes the essay is the hardest part of the whole application process, and filling out this form for us, we really appreciate it when they do that. So list 5 adjectives that best describe you. What major are you thinking about? If they're undecided, that's okay. Any factors that have affected your performance in school that you would like us to address in your letter of recommendation? Ms. Fahey and we don't want to disclose, we will not disclose information about your student or about you without speaking to you about it first. If you want us to explain anything on your transcript, this is the opportunity. You can put it here, and then we will reach out to your student and have a conversation with them about how they would like that to look. So we never want to say too much, and we don't want to say too little. We want your student to feel comfortable. And if you have any questions about that, we're happy to have those conversations with you too. So everyone feels good about your student's letter of recommendation. We feel like our job is to sell your student to these colleges and do whatever we can to try and get them in. So we've never written a negative letter of recommendation. We're not going to start that now. We really want to focus on the positives and really accentuate who they are as students and as people. This is the part of our job
that we love. This is the stuff we love to do.
It really is fun to write your students' letters of recommendation. So any information that would set you apart from other students, what are you most proud of? Share a story that significantly impacted you, and list your extracurricular activities. So this is important because we know your students. We've been working with them for the last 3 years, but a lot of students don't come down to guidance unless it's about scheduling, or we just check in to go through one of whatever we're checking in on. So this is important so we can really get to know your student through as much as we can that they can give us on a form. But this really helps us sell your student beyond that superficial level that we may only know your student on. Some students, we know them very well, but it's always helpful to have this additional information. So we ask students to fill this out 2 weeks in advance to make sure that we, for time management purposes, can get their letters of recommendation written and submitted as close to their application deadline as possible. In your packet, you will see that we have step-by-step directions how to do everything on the Common App, everything for the most part. But your student's going to need specific information for how to fill out the education heading. It's a grades section. They want to know how big your student's graduating class size is. It's 150 for the senior class. They want to know your students, how we report your class rank. We don't rank students, we use a decile. So that's what percentage your student falls in the class. So if the number on your student's transcript is a 1, it means they fall in the top 10% of their class. So we put down here, if it says 1, you'll enter 10% from the drop-down menu, 2, top 20%, 3, enter 30%. We tried to put all the information here because this is very confusing information, and I wouldn't know how to fill it out if I was a senior in high school unless someone told me specifically what to put. It asks if we have a weighted GPA, what scale it's on. It's on a 4.0 scale. So all the information is here. I'm going to walk you through some of this when we go into the Common App. I just want you to see what's here and also what's in your packet. We have step-by-step directions for how your student can attach their college essay to the Common App. And you can see here, some of the slides might be a little fuzzy in your packet, but the text is very clear, and you can always reference back to your student's Google Classroom. I think the directions are the most important part, and it will walk you through with the screenshots. These screenshots were taken right from the Common App. We created a student account so we could act as students to show you exactly what steps need to be done. There's something called the FERPA waiver. So this is a release of information so that Ms. Fahey and I can send your students letters of recommendation and transcripts to the colleges that they're applying to. All of your students have to fill this out one time on the Common App. We put specific instructions for how it needs to look, step by step, screen by screen, what they need to select. They select that they authorize us to release all records to the schools that they're applying to, records being transcript and letters of information. We're not disclosing any other information. And they waive the right to read the letters of recommendation, and they understand once they make the decision, it can't be changed. And then they sign it and they submit it. So you can always come back to this slide to reference how to fill that form out. We have another slide for how to add Ms. Fahey and I to your student, or for your student to add us to their Common App. They'll be inviting us, and these are the specific directions to do that. I will show you when we go into the Common App how specifically to do that. If you keep going down, it'll also explain how to invite a teacher. It has, when you're inviting the counselor, it has Ms. Fahey's specific contact information, her name, her email address, and if you keep going, it has my contact information. So all the information you have is there. When your student fills this out, it will prompt Ms. Fahey and I to receive an email from the Common App that's letting us know that your student has requested us to write their letter of recommendation and send their transcripts. So if they put in the wrong email address, we won't get that information. So it's very important that you follow these screenshots, or your student follows these screenshots to make sure the information is correct. Same thing. I used Ms. Hulk as an example for a teacher that I invited, and it will say invite teacher. You will add your teacher's information. Any questions on their emails, your student should ask them just to be on the safe side. Okay. I know I'm going through this a little fast, so we will have time for questions and answers, and like I said, after this, I'm gonna walk you through how to fill this out. So there is an application guide. It's amazing the resources that are available through the Common App and through YouTube and all over the place for how to fill out college applications. So it's nice that this resource is on the Common App. If you scroll down, it will walk you through every single section. It tells you what you need, that your student will make a list of all their activities, if they took tests, their test scores, they'll need parent information, how to create an account. They have videos, like some of them are only a minute and a half. They're very easy to watch. They're direct and to the point, and they follow it up with directions. So it is all there for you. So that's our Google Classroom, where all this information is housed. I opened up a window, and this is how your students are going to access the Common App. So the Common App is going to be most of your students' main way to apply to college. Not all colleges are on it, unfortunately. Worcester State is not on it, Salem State is not on it, and there are other schools that your student will have to go to their website and apply directly through their website. So that's where that extra homework comes in to find out. I mean, I will show you. You will know if a college is not on here, so you'll know if you'll have to go through that other channel. So I just want to go in and show you where's to create. Okay. So you'll either create an account if you're a new applicant. I'm going to sign in as a first-year student. We always recommend that students write down all their passwords, all their usernames. It gets very confusing to remember all of these things. They have College Board accounts, they'll have Common App accounts, they might have specific school accounts. So have them create a note section or write it down on a piece of paper and have a folder to help them stay organized. Or else you'll be resetting all over the place and it's really stressful. So I just added some colleges. When we walk students through this process, we'll add schools that they might be applying to. So I've just added a couple schools along the way. Just so you can see, we have 5 tabs, a dashboard, which tells me all the schools that I'm applying to. a My Colleges tab, a Common App tab, College Search, and a Financial Aid Resources tab. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I just want you to know it's here. There is a direct link to the Fafsa from here, which did open on October 1st. So if you haven't created the Fafsa, if your student hasn't created the Fafsa account, that's something they want to do as soon as possible. They will have to create a PIN through the federal government. You will also have to create a PIN if you haven't done so already. If you've applied to college and filled out the FAFSA at some point in your life, you should have a PIN already created in your name, and you will use that PIN to access your account. If you have any questions about these things, we recommend that you please reach out to the FAFSA directly. Ms. Fahey and I have information because she's filled it out, I filled it out. However, everyone's financial situation and questions are different and sometimes very unique. So we want you to reach out to the experts.
There are a lot of, the FAFSA site has been updated as well, and there are a lot of videos, just like on the Common App. And just so you know, there's a FAFSA hotline, and I actually called when I was applying. I was working with my son 2 years ago, and I made a mistake, and I was panicked, and I called the 800 number. At that point, I don't know if it still is, but it was 24 hours, and they were able to help me. So there's a lot of resources out there.
And some new things they've added, I think they added it last year. If you go down, they have net price calculators, but Common App has also partnered with different outside scholarship organizations. So when your student fills out their Common App, it will take the information from their profile and also regarding the schools that they're applying to, and it's going to try and match them up with scholarships that fit to your student. So we always recommend them exploring this area and signing in. I don't usually get too much feedback about how many outside scholarship students get. I wish they'd let us know so we'd know if it was lucrative and worth students' time, but if it's free money there's a shot, I think it's probably worth their time.
We do partner. We have a contact at Citizens Bank, and she came in last year, and she has a lot of virtual resources, so we're going to offer that again. When students get their award letter, we do an award letter session with her, and she will actually go through the award letter in a lot of detail, because when your students get their financial aid package, sometimes it's a little difficult to decipher, and I have students come down, they're like, oh, I got $13,000 to go to Merrimack, and I'm like, well, you do understand that that's money that you get, that's scholarship, but then this part here is a loan that you have to pay back. So we do offer that, and we'll offer that for students this year, probably virtually, and she's very good. She goes through the award letter and talks about financial aid, so there'll be more information on that.
So this college search is really where students will start. So I'm just going to add a college. I don't think I've already added it. I'm just going to add Roger Williams University in Rhode Island. So all I have to do is type Roger. It populates right here. The plus sign means add college. I'm going to add it. It says it's been added to your My Colleges list. I come over here to My Colleges, and Roger Williams University showed up right here. When I click on it, you can see it's very confusing if you've never done this before. These are all the schools that I am saying that I'm applying to. So they're sort of listed in this tab formation, and it'll minimize and it will expand. So if I click on Brown University, you can see that I have specific questions for Brown University. It will have additional writing supplements. It will tell me the specific information about the college. If you keep going down, it actually tells you that they have a flexible standardized test policy. It tells you that they require 2 letters of recommendation from teachers, and some of the information that they're requiring. So I just want to go back to Roger Williams University. So I click on it. Again, it'll tell me the college's information. When I click on questions, it's going to have specific questions that are going to go only to Roger Williams University. Roger Williams University does not know that I am also applying to Brown, UNH, or any of these other schools. This is your student's own personal application list and is not disclosed. So Roger Williams will have questions, full-time, when do they want to start? Everything is specific to this school. So they will just walk through. It's very easy to fill out. It's just time consuming. So on this specific part, if you keep scrolling down, you'll get to the bottom of the questions, and then it will have some more questions. Some of these sections only have like 1 or 2 questions. What's your intended major? But anyway, it's specific to the school. So every college that your student's applying to will have specific, college-specific questions. Under this Common App tab, I think this is the most time-consuming piece of filling out the Common App. It's going to ask for your student's name. Have I ever used any other names? It's going to ask me just basic questions about myself, my address, my contact details, demographics, all of these things. If your student receives free and reduced lunch, down here is a place for a Common App fee waiver, and they can select that they do receive a fee waiver, and we just confirm that that's the case. Also, there's a lot of families that are going through a lot of financial hardship, and a lot of colleges understand that, and if you call the admissions office or have your student call the admissions office, they will typically give out fee waivers for that specific school if they have the ability to do so. So, just putting that out there, it's worth the phone call.
Especially if you're applying to multiple colleges, because it does add up. And a lot of them have waived the fee waivers for this year. So when we get that information, we'll share it.
Sometimes it's $60 to $75 per school, so it does get very expensive. So some of them are a little bit less, but I feel like for the most part, they're all $50 to $75. So they're going to have to go through, there's just a lot of information that they have to fill out. Under this education piece, on that screenshot that I showed you, that it's going to ask for your student's GPA and their decile, that is down here. Under grades, like I said, we spelled it out in the directions on your handout that is in the education section under grades. It wants to know the graduating class size, that we use a decile. Your students should all have been given a copy of their transcript, and on their transcript it will have their specific GPA in their exact decile. Again, as we showed in that handout, if it's a 1, they'll be in the top 10%, a 2, they'll put top 20%, and so on. It's a weighted decile. We report on a 4.0 scale. They'll put their specific GPA. And again, it's a weighted GPA, and they will continue. Here, your students need to list all of the classes that they're taking this year. If they don't know their second semester classes, that's okay. They don't have to report those necessarily. I think the academics are the most important part. They write which classes or how many, whether it's semester, we are on a semester basis. They'll write their course title. It has levels, so if it's an AP class, advanced placement, there's college prep level, there's high honors. We don't do high honors, we do honors. So
I'm just there's been a lot of questions, a lot of parents have reached out. So students do fill out on the Common App their current year courses, but parents have said, how does their transcript get there? So as counselors, we will send the letter of recommendation. We put our school profile up there for the students, and then we will upload their transcript. So we're uploading their transcript so it'll automatically be there for any college that they apply to. This is just something that they ask to students to list their current year courses.
which is strange, because it's all on their transcript. It's pretty
Yeah.
redundant, and then here it says courses and grades. One college that I'm applying to on my list, Umass Amherst, requires me to put every single class I've taken throughout high school. So that's time consuming, but your student has their transcript, so they can just copy it down there and just give them the information that they need. But you can see these other colleges that I have on my list do not require it. So if it says it's not used, then your student should not be filling that out. So they'll go through, where it says writing, one of your handouts was how to attach their college essay. And it's going to tell me which colleges I'm applying to that require it. You can see Bridgewater State does not require an essay. And down here, they select which prompt they wrote on. Your students will know which prompt they wrote on, and when they keep going down, there will be, they can attach it through Google Drive, or they can cut it and paste it, and the colleges will get it. So it's pretty user-friendly. They lay it out pretty nicely, but again, all of these pieces are very important. Your student's not going to be able to submit these applications unless all of these areas are filled out. So that is a good fail-safe. However, sometimes there's check marks in areas that I didn't fill out, which I don't understand. I think maybe because it's an optional area of like extracurricular activities. If I didn't take part in any extracurricular activities, I think it might even show it. I might have a check mark in some of these.
It will not let you submit it, though, unless you have, it'll prompt you if you've missed something.
Yeah. Okay. So we always just say double check the check marks. So there's nothing more important than this application being filled out completely and right. So just always double check before doing your final submission. So again, anything that's filled out in this Common App tab will be sent to all of the schools that your students are applying to. Anything that's filled out in this My College's specific area is going to be sent to the specific school that your student is applying to. I'm just going to go back to Roger Williams University. We went through, I showed you where the questions were that'll go directly to Roger Williams University. Underneath here it says recommenders and FERPA. This is going to be the area where your student is going to fill out that FERPA release that will allow us to send their letters of recommendation and transcript to the schools that they're applying to. I've already filled it out when we created that handout for you. I had to fill it out, so I can't go back in. You can only fill it out one time. So you have the screenshots for how to do that specifically. When you go down here, there's going to be a spot that says invite counselor. I wish I could do it, but because I've already filled it out, it won't let me. But you'll see on your screenshot, it'll say invite counselor, and you will put my information or Ms. Fahey's information, and then underneath that, it will say teacher, invite teacher. In the screenshots that you have in front of you, for every school that your student is applying, they have to assign the recommender to send the teacher's letter of recommendation to that specific school. So let me explain that a little bit better. Some schools will only allow your student to submit one letter of recommendation from a teacher. So if your student has requested 2 letters of recommendation from 2 different teachers, they have to pick which one they want to go to that specific school. So let's say I have Ms. Hulk and I have Mr. Silva. I'll have to pick one or the other and then assign it. So that direction is in your handout. I just want to show you under UNH, same thing. I just want to go under recommenders and FERPA.
For one, Ms. Lyons, on Roger Williams,
Yeah.
it said 1 was required, but you could send 3. So some schools will only allow you to send 1. So what's nice is you can customize. So for instance, my son applied to University of South Carolina. One of his teachers was an alumni, so he chose to send that recommendation to that school. So again, right where it says required 0 but optional 3, so you can send multiple. But again, some schools will only allow you to send 1.
And it will ensure, this is another fail-safe. It tells your students specifically what's required for this school. So again, for every college that they're applying to, they have to assign that teacher. So if they have a coach, if they have a music teacher that's, so under teacher, I think it says English, math, science. It doesn't list band, art, those kinds of subjects. So they can be invited under where it says invite other recommender. They'll put that recommender's email address, who they are, arts teacher, clergy, coach. Some people will hire a college access counselor. They can put that contact information there, employers. So that's where they're gonna be able to add that. It says advisor. Ms. Fahey and I are under counselor. Some people list us as advisor, but we are counselors on this piece, so that's a little confusing.
I had a student this year that's going for business, and they wanted Mrs. O'Brien, who's retired. So they had Mrs. O'Brien's email address, and we reached out, and they were able to include her as, for their recommendation, because they were going for business, and they had gone through DECA with her, and so it was important. So you do have that flexibility.
So it's really nice. The Common App is fantastic for a lot of reasons, but you and your student can track your student's paperwork. So you can see where I'm listed as my guidance counselor. School report is not started. The school report is what Ms. Fahey and I, where we'll send your transcripts. The counselor recommendation is pretty self-explanatory. It shows I have not started that, but when I have, it will say submitted. I believe it says submitted or completed, and I think it says the date specifically of when that's done. So it'll be a really nice way, same with Ms. Hulk or whoever your student is adding as a teacher, they'll be able to see when that's completed. So they don't have to be like, I don't know if they did it, you know, and I'd be really nervous and paranoid, and I'd probably be nagging and harping. So it's just so nice, they don't have to do that, it's all right here. Again, when we send your students' first term grades, it'll be an optional report. We'll send semester grades as a mid-year report, and final report will be your student's final transcript after they graduate. We typically do it the week after they graduate, so it gives time for the transcript to be updated, GPA to be run, and everything will be complete at that point.
I don't know if we said this earlier, but students, if they've got their Common App all set, they're ready to go, they can submit it, and our recommendations can follow, so that won't hold them up. They can still, I think Ms. Lyons said, schools are going to wait for those first term grades, but they can go ahead if they're all set. I had a student today, she's like, I'm going to get it done, I'm getting them all done this week, but you can go ahead and submit, and my recommendation will follow.
And colleges are aware that schools started late, that everything has started late. So they're being very understanding and flexible, which is fantastic. So if your student has any questions or concerns, please have them reach out to us. We would rather have them ask a million questions than have it be locked in their head and lose sleep over. So there's usually a very simple answer, even if they send us an email at night so it just gets off their mind, and we'll respond the next day or the next morning and call them down or set up a virtual meeting, whatever works for your student to make sure that their questions are answered. So when everything's filled out, when my Common App tab is filled out, when my questions are filled out, I've invited my recommenders, we go to review and submit. I haven't filled out a significant portion of this, so it's stopping me from being able to submit. So in order to begin the submission process, you must complete the following items, and it will link me directly back to what I need to complete. So once all of those things are done, it will prompt your student to be able to push through to do a full PDF preview of their application, which is very important that your student looks at very closely. They want to look for typos, capitalization, issues. So this year more than ever, they're going to be so judgy off your student's application. So we want to make a great first impression, make sure they review it, and that there's no grammatical errors.
I just wanted to point out the chat too. So if they reach out to us, they send us an email, they have a question, they can actually chat. So there's a lot, again, just to point out all the resources that are there. So there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. So then, again, back to the dashboard, it just tells me you know, the status of my application. It just tells me some of the additional information that some schools want additional writing pieces, but it's sort of at a glance. The dashboard's an at a glance kind of feature. But so I think that was the majority of the Common App. I mean, like I said, any questions? It's just filling through, it's just filing through, going through, answering the drop-down boxes. And like I said, the screenshots are in front of you and available through the Google Classroom. So do you want to, should we open it up for questions?
Yeah. So are there any, yeah? Yeah, so scholarships, so we do a scholarship application in February. Miss Benson, our guidance secretary, puts it together. This year, we are going to put all of the information in one place. We have a new system, SCORE, that we're phasing in for college searches and application. So this year, there's a lot of information thrown at people. So this year, seniors are applying this way and not really using all of the features in SCORE. There was just a lot of new stuff, and we didn't want to overwhelm students. But we did invite all the seniors to open up their SCORE account. They don't have to do a lot in there, but there are a lot of tools. There's actually a U-Science profile that can help them with career planning if they want to do that. And we are planning to put all of the scholarship information in SCORE in one place, so it'll be easily accessed. So that's all of the local scholarships. There are a number of other scholarship sites, but they're more national, and we don't really promote them only because we don't know how successful students are with those national scholarships. That being said, there's one site, Going Merry, that a lot of people have been using. Our rule of thumb is if there's an opportunity out there and it doesn't cost you anything to search the scholarships, then go ahead and do that. But we are lucky, we're very fortunate at EB, we have a lot of local scholarships and we give out a lot of money. So that one application that they fill out will give them access to multiple scholarships, and then there will be a couple of separate applications that they fill out. We also tell students, if you work at Stop and Shop, or you have a family member that works at Stop and Shop. When I was in high school, my dad was a police officer. The Mass Police Association gave out a scholarship. It wasn't a huge scholarship, but every little bit helps. That paid for my books. Local banks will give up scholarships to their members. So we say Thanksgiving is coming. If you're seeing family, ask everyone at the table if their place of employment offers a scholarship. And we just encourage students to apply. But we do have that scholarship application process that will be in information in February and apply in March.
So also, when your student's applying to college, they're going to receive an award letter like Ms. Fahey talked about. And in that award letter, it will say they received whatever amount of money. It could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 sometimes in merit aid. So that is based on academics. So that's based on GPA, could be extracurricular activities, it could be for a lot of different things.
Right.
So they will spell out how much money they will be given off of the bill. So that's helpful. So that's something they don't have to apply for, they're applying for it directly just through their application.
And that's why the FAFSA is so important. So your colleges can't prepare your financial aid package until you fill out the FAFSA. So it's available October 1st. A lot of colleges will say like the drop dead date is March 1st that they have to have it in, but we encourage students to do it as soon as possible because there is a limited amount of funds, so the sooner you get that in, you get access to that pool of funds.
Oh, it's really important too, I'm sorry, we keep bouncing back and forth,
No,
your
that's
heads
fine.
are going back and forth. Some schools require additional financial aid documents, it's called a CSS profile. So it's important to start this process as soon as possible to make sure that you're checking all the boxes of things you need to do. A lot of schools just require the FAFSA, but some require that additional step that's going to go a little bit deeper into your finances, and they're going to want more information, and they have different deadlines. So some could have a December 1st deadline for their CSS profile and had to have a November 15th deadline for the application. Just please be mindful of the application deadlines. The FAFSA deadlines, the CSS profile deadlines. That's why we really encourage your students to take good notes, right? And so they don't miss an important deadline.
Any other? Yep.
Working on them now with their English teachers, or do we know if the attributes that you spoke about that are important to stand out, are those all taken into consideration when they're working with the teachers on these applications?
Yeah, so every teacher is a little different. So some teachers start the process in junior English. Some teachers do it at a different point senior year. Those attributes, I just presented that because it's a very succinct way to look at not only the essay, but the entire application process. That's why I like it summarized that way. But the teachers do work closely with students on their college essay, and the teachers will help them edit it. I had a couple students that have sent me their college essay, not so much to edit it, but when we're writing the letters of recommendation, if they want to share it with us, sometimes it helps us really personalize their essay.
We really enjoy reading them. We really feel like we get to know your student on a different level, and it's just really nice. Your students do a really great job on them.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yep.
Prior to the guidance counselor change, do they have to go back in and request?
Great question. So yes, Ms. Fahey originally was the counselor. Starting this year, she was going to be the counselor for all the seniors, and I was going to do all the remote seniors. So we asked your students to add her if they were in cohort A, B, or D, and to add me if they're cohort C. So we've added an announcement to the Google Classroom to please go back in and change that. I've emailed students. When we get that transcript release form, we become aware of your students' deadlines. So I was able to see my former students, and again, my students again now, who have November 1st deadlines, and I emailed them today and asked them to please go in and add me. So those students did respond, and they have added me.
Once they've applied to school and submitted, then they can't change their counselor, but up until now, they can. And if for some reason they have, Ms. Lyons and I work very closely together. They don't need to stress about that. Even when I had all the seniors, I said to kids, Ms. Lyons and I work close together. Don't stress about this. You've got enough to stress about. So in the event that they've already submitted it, or if they're not sure how to change it, just have them reach out to us. I had a couple of kids reach out to me today, and we were able to clear it up.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah,
That was a
good
really
question.
important question. Yeah, yes. Fortunately, it's just, you just go to,
Just that one spot.
yeah, it'll say manage recommenders, and that's where you'll be able to change that.
Thank you.
Do you see this manage recommenders? So you can edit, you can trash me or trash Ms. Fahey and then re-invite. So,
Thank you. Any other questions? If you think of anything after this, I know it's a lot of information, feel free to reach out. Again, we can do a phone call, we can set up a Google Meet, whatever works well. We've been going into, I think I've gone into every single senior Viking block. I have 3 to hit at the end of the week for the cohort B kids. And then we've done some Google Meets with the cohort C kids. So we've made contact with all the kids, and we've had a couple meetings, but if you have any questions or your student has any questions, they can just reach out.
anytime, please, please, please. We're happy to set up a meeting whenever, however. Viking block, after school, whatever works best for you or your student. So what we'd like to do, so if hopefully everyone signed in through by taking the picture, and we'd like to send out an evaluation if we can through your email address over the next day or so, if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes and just filling it out. It will help us plan better for next year with what you felt like was most useful, and if there's areas where we need to improve, we'd really appreciate the feedback, Because it's really, this is all about you guys and trying to give you the information that simplifies this stressful process.
And we understand that this has been a stressful period anyway, and it's shortened, but we're here to get you through it. So I always take the kids when they come into my office, take a deep breath. We're going to get through this together. So we appreciate you taking the time to come out tonight.